was so proud of me.
I'm Tommy Salmons. This is Year Zero, the show that revolutionizes personal engagement in the world and fortification of your life. Let's get to it. We're brought to you by Fox & Sons, foxandsons.com, the best place to get your BBC. I never start my day with anything less than BBC in my mouth, and I suggest if you like BBC, you go to foxandsons.com. Get that big, bold coffee and put it in your mouth. foxandsons.com, promo code 0 at checkout for 18% off on any order $25 or more. That's foxandsons.com for that BBC big, bold coffee. Put it in your mouth, baby. And the Marc Clair Show. If you enjoyed Marc Clair with Lions of Liberty, you're going to really dig the Marc Clair Show. Marc Clair has gone beyond the realm of politics to dig into the esoteric meaning of life in all sorts of different avenues, whether it be entrepreneurship, ghosts, goblins, Bigfoot, demonic entities, religion. Marc Clair is diving into all of it, and he's not afraid to tackle any task. So go check out the Marc Clair Show. Thank you, as always, Tom Burton, for the music. And you can find this show and many more at the Libertarian Institute.org. That's the Libertarianinstitute.org. That's where you'll find me, Patrick McFarlane, Scott Horton, Keith Knight, Will Porter, Kyle Anzalone, and a host of other writers like Kim Robinson. Go to the Libertarianinstitute.org and keep track of everything that we are doing for you. All right. Here we are. Mr. Buck Johnson, what's going on, man?
Howdy. What's up, Tommy? Fellow Texans.
Yeah, and Matt Erickson. We're doing the Texas show today.
Yeah. We're survivors of Texas thunderstorms.
Yeah,
Couldn't get in the way of us doing this show.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good deal. But all right, yeah, I wanted to call you in. Like, I got a hold of y'all because I wanted to do a show on like the distractions of our world around us. And listening to Matt's show with David Gornowski, and then reading May 31st reflection out of the prologue got me thinking about this. And I was like, so much of us get so distracted with life, with all the banter going on around us, whether it be, like the whole culture war, or politics is kind of like a pop culture phenomenon now, or we're caught up watching sports or entertainment or whatnot, that it can pull us away, like mentally, from the task at hand and building our relationship with God and moving closer. And I notice I struggle with this a lot. Like I'm very like singular focused. And so it's just like when something else pops up, it's like squirrel, and I just go running full speed at the bright light, and I it's like 3 days or so before I realize, oh shit, I haven't done any of this other stuff that that I'm supposed to be doing. Like, do y'all deal with all that stuff?
Yeah, definitely. It's very hard to, I already kind of have a proclivity toward like ADHD. I already kind of have that naturally. And then obviously the modern world is basically just like a factory for cranking out people with attention deficit issues. Social media, and then the phones, just having a phone, period. I mean, even I've heard of technologies that they use with the phone, with like the types of flashing lights. It's like flashing, but like it's almost imperceptible. You can't actually pick up the flashing, but it actually starts rewiring your brain. There's a specific technology that I think like Facebook had a patent on or something like that, that it begins rewiring your brain to need that constant stimuli. And if you don't have that, then your brain kind of starts short circuiting or not. You just can't focus or concentrate on anything. And that's something that's basically been intentionally weaponized against us. So yeah, it's definitely something that I've struggled a lot with.
Yes, same. I was speaking with an Orthodox friend about the possibility, not me, because I can't develop apps, but just we were brainstorming an app idea that would focus on like aesthetics. And I don't know how exactly we were brainstorming, but like if it would pop up after your phone's open, let's say more than 8 minutes or something like that, or you could almost program it where it pops up something with an Orthodox message or an aesthetic, or like to like, hey, pray this prayer right now, or do prostrations or where you're at or something like that. And I was like, yeah, I mean, it's sad, but I need something like that because I catch myself looking at Twitter and then Instagram and then Facebook. And it's like, I haven't read anything holy in nature. I haven't looked at the Bible yet. I try to do that every morning. I haven't prayed yet. And it's like, why did I do all this other crap? You know,
Right.
I catch myself in that moment and I get annoyed. And then here I am in that moment again. You know, it's crazy.
Yeah. And I find that like, you know, I'll get caught up watching like, you know, something on some UFC podcast or something like that at the end of the day. And I'll look at my phone and it'll be 10 o'clock. I'll be like, shit, I got to go to bed. And I'll just roll right into bed. Won't even think about prayer or anything. I'll be like, man, I'm tired. I got to go to bed, you know? And then you know, that'll happen for a couple of days in a row. And the next morning I'll sleep later than normal. So I'll jump up and then I'm like, crap, I don't have time to hit the prayer closet today. I gotta get out of here and get to work. And so it happened a few days in a row. And then I'm just like frustrated. I'm irritated. I'm pissed off at myself. I'm just like, geez, man, I'm failing at all this stuff, you know? And it gets to you. And one of the things that it's like Matt's talking about rewiring yourself or the way that the internet has been structured to rewire your brain. It's almost like we have to relearn. I was talking to Daniel McAdams and Jim Jotras the other day whenever I recorded with them, and even Daniel McAdams.
Great episode, by the way.
Oh, I appreciate that. Both of them. I really like both those guys a lot.
Me too.
But Daniel McAdams was even telling me, he's like, yeah, man, I find that I don't read like I used to. You know, I don't. And I was like, man, that's crazy. I was like, well, at least it's not just me. At least I'm not just some kind of retard or something. Like,
I saw a workout routine that a coworker was showing me, and in it had like regular physical workout things that you would, of course, see in a workout routine. And it said also every day read 10 pages of nonfiction. I think it was specified nonfiction, which is what I prefer. But I thought, what a cool, I need a work. Because if it's in a workout program, I do it just because that's just part of my lifestyle at this point. But I thought, what a cool thing to add to it. And you mentioned UFC. One of these guilty pleasures I have, and I get annoyed a little bit at myself for it, is I follow a couple of these Twitter accounts that show actual fights on the street, not UFC. And I can't stop watching them sometimes. And there's part of me that's like, when you see a guy that thinks he's tough talk shit to someone and then get knocked out, I don't know why, but something in me likes that, because it's like, why'd you think you were so tough? Now look at you. You're seizing on the ground with your arms locked up. And I can't quit watching them. And I find myself after 20 minutes sometimes scrolling. It's like, stop, put your phone down. And the vocal aspects of most of those videos are pretty degenerate and awful. But yeah, it's a guilty pleasure. I hate that I like it.
With all this stuff, it's like like Tommy, you're talking about getting frustrated that you haven't been praying consistently or reading. And then you start getting frustrated that you're frustrated. You get this meta thing where you start getting mad about being mad. You start being frustrated about being frustrated. It kind of turns into some kind of a vicious cycle. I was thinking about recently about the way that our culture has developed to the point where like there's this dynamic of high versus low time preference, and the ability to delay gratification. And I think this ties directly into this inability to concentrate and focus and sustain long periods of thought. And you look back at even 50, 70 years ago, you would have like people would write letters to each other. Like think about what it takes to sit down and write a letter to like by hand. Like you write the whole thing out by hand, and like all the different synapses and neurons and all the different activity and stuff that goes into that, the hand-eye coordination, all these different things, and the feeling, the sense of creating something that's real, that's tangible, that you can hold in your hand, and then mailing it. And like you would have conversations. It would take years for people to have a conversation, because you write a letter and you send it off to them, and then it might be 6 months, it might be 18 months, it might be 5 years before you get a response back. And then like being able to sustain a thought for that long. And now it's just, everything is just amped up to the nth degree. And it doesn't seem, I don't remember the last time I read a book, like a physical book. I can't do it. I sit down and I start reading it, and my eyes are reading the words, but there's nothing going into my brain. My brain is in all kinds of other different directions. And it's really, really frustrating. That's one thing that's been kind of enjoyable for me about doing this, reading the Father Seraphim Rose books, is for whatever reason, when I'm doing that, I can sit down and I can read, and I'm doing it digitally, but I can sit there and I can read, and it forces me to think about the ideas in a different way than the typical way that I consume it, which is walking and listening to audiobooks or listening to podcasts. So I mean, it's almost like we're being fundamentally changed on a species level to where, like, if you take someone with the capacity for self-discipline and delaying gratification and long time horizons, low time preference, someone like that, which was just the kind of the common average person a few generations ago, to where now, like, those people are unicorns. You almost never see someone like that today, and they stand out when they do. These are almost like different species of people.
I was talking to you guys both know Brittany, of course. She's been getting into SLR cameras, like actual film, and getting it developed. And she said an interesting, I told her I thought that was neat, and I appreciated the artistic value of what she was doing. And she said it's a practice in low time horizons, because she said delayed gratification, because now you take a picture and people go, oh, let me see what it looks like. Oh no, delete that one. And she's like, they can't do that because it's a month later I get it developed, and you almost forget that you took that picture. And it's funny that even our cameras have us trained to want immediate gratification. Let me see it. No, edit it. Okay, now post it. And it's just, no one thought in those terms 15 years ago forever. It's crazy.
Remember having disposable cameras, and like you would take the camera and like you buy the camera, you go on a vacation, you take the pictures, and then you send it off to be developed, and like it'd come back and all the pictures were terrible because they were blurry, or like, that's just, I mean, this is within 15 years ago, 20 years ago, how dramatically things have changed.
I went to when I went to pick up Beatrix from the airport the other day, I was sitting at the stoplight just before getting into the airport itself, getting up to the terminals. And I was thinking, because I have my earbud in, so I'm listening to something. I'm listening to podcasts or something going on. And I was like, okay, I'm going to take it out. I'm going to leave it in the truck, and I'll just bring my phone in with me so I can text with her and find out when she gets off the plane and all that. And I'm thinking, I'm like, well, what am I going to do while I'm sitting there waiting for her to get through customs and this, that, and the other? And I'm like, well, what did I do the last time I went and picked her up from the airport whenever she was going through customs? And so I made it a point to leave the earbud in the truck, so I wasn't tempted to listen to it. And I forced myself to go to my old habit of people watching. And I really enjoyed it. I was like, oh man, I miss this, and just watching people interact and get home off the plane and see their loved ones for the first time in weeks. And, a little boy running towards his dad with a balloon, daddy, like, I was like, this is awesome. This is what it's about.
Yes. Yeah. You miss out. We all see you miss out on actual true emotional experiences because you're looking through your black mirror. This is of course talked about a lot, but at concerts and whatnot, I think Tommy, you might have had a thread on this recently, where you're at a live music event and everyone's like looking at it through this thing. It's strange, and so much so that I don't know if y'all are familiar with Danzig. He has had a rule at certain when he plays that no phones out are allowed. I think it's for filming or copyright violation purposes or something like that, but it's a much better experience, even though we're trained to go like, oh, what a authoritarian jerk or whatever. But it's like, just if I could have someone to tell me, put your phone in your pocket and don't pull it out for this entire event. I actually like that better. And I try as well at church. There's moments at church where I want to capture a moment and take a picture. And then sometimes I'm like, maybe I shouldn't.
I don't bring my phone inside the church. I leave my phone.
It feels like a weird place to do that, but yet at the same time, there's so much beauty that I want to capture in a picture too. It's kind of a weird juxtaposition.
But that was that double driver that happened. It was so odd because we're standing up next to the bar and it's kind of an elevated area, like right next to the stage. So we're looking out at the stage and the pit is like right here. And everybody in the pit, instead of being in a pit, they're holding their phones up recording the show. And it's like, dude, you're at a double driver show. You're in a pit. Like, start a pit, So I pulled out my phone and I like kind of recorded. I was like, look at this. This is crazy. I've never seen a pit like this, And they're like, oh, you're recording the people that are recording the show. And I'm like, yeah, I know, I get it. But still, it was kind of weird to see. It was like, what you're not even experiencing what's going on right in front of you,
Yes. And the newer generations in society are too fragile for a pit. So maybe this is like more fitting for them or something to just record it instead of actually get touched.
Well, I'm too fragile anymore. I can't do it anymore.
You can't step on Zer's toes. So you're talking about people watching. And one thing I've realized before, because I used to, when I was in high school, I spent a lot of time in airports because traveling back and forth, or like when I'd go up to the academy I went to, my parents would drop me off at the airport because the bus would come down. And so I'd get there at like 10 in the morning and the bus wouldn't leave until 8 p.m. And this is mid 2000s. So, there's no cell phones or anything. So I'm just kind of sit there and have to figure out something to do. So I'd people watch and grew to really enjoy that. But now I've found that when I'm in those environments and I sit there and I'm like watching people, sometimes I'll get really self-conscious because nobody else is sitting there just looking around watching people. It's almost now it's kind of weird. Like if you see the guy who's sitting there just not playing on his phone, not watching anything, not reading anything, he's just kind of sitting there just looking around watching people. It's kind of like, I'll even get sense myself doing this when I see other people that are like that. I have that split second of like, what's his deal? Like, why is he staring at me?
Look at this creep.
Yeah. And you have to be careful now because 15, 20 years ago, if you were just sitting watching people do stuff, there was a pretty low chance that someone was going to get aggro with you. But now there's a pretty legitimate, like people can be like, what are you looking at? What do you want? And collectively, we're all kind of losing our minds. And you can't trust the way that people are going to respond and react to things. This extends out to, I kind of run through scenarios in my mind. Like if I'm out shopping or out doing something, especially if I'm with a family and someone starts really acting up or there's some kind of a situation, my threshold for getting involved is way higher than it used to be because people have just, especially since COVID, people have just gotten so unpredictable. You see, there's so much more, either just straight up like mental illness, people just acting out, or people picking fights over the slightest things. And like Buck, you're talking about there's these videos, these accounts on YouTube that post these fight videos. And I'm sure there's some degree to which like these fights have always happened. They just don't get captured. Now they get captured. And so we're aware of them. But it starts becoming kind of a self-perpetuating thing where people sit and watch these fight videos and that's in their mind. And so when something starts happening, they're beginning to enact the thing that they've been sitting there consuming.
Yeah.
They start embodying that role and they're more ready to get into the fight or they're going to approach a fight differently because of the stuff that they've seen. It just kind of feels like, like culturally we're teetering on the edge of a knife, and all it would take is one little thing to just knock us completely off. I know I think twice about going to a parade or a movie theater or some big gathering of people, because those venues have become targets. Even it doesn't really matter where you are; those are the places that crazy people target. And I don't have any desire to be in a place like that with my family. But at the same time, I don't want to live in fear. I don't want to be cowering away. I don't want to be depriving my family of opportunities or experiences. So it's hard to walk that knife's edge.
I was just telling Julie, she was saying something that she doesn't like. She feels uncomfortable in movie theaters and because of this same kind of thing. And at first I was like, oh, come on. And then I thought back, you know what? One of the last movies I saw in a theater was the Joker movie, which already had that kind of aura about it. Like, oh, these are going to be like, weird guys that go see it. And so I did find myself in the theater, like, that guy's by himself. Young white man. He looks kind of pissed off and desperate, and I'm starting to like watch everyone. I'm like, if he even makes the slightest move, I'm going to tackle that son of a bitch. It's like, I was going to the bathroom, Oh, don't lie to me. Where's your gun?
And you're not the only person there that's thinking that way.
Right. Yeah.
Everyone is all kind of viewing each other with suspicion, and it's I've been really struck lately with the value and importance of community, and being able to be around people that you trust, that you can depend upon, who have a wide range of capacities, different skill sets, and the ability to exchange goods and services with each other. And it's so far removed from us now, but once upon a time, easily within our lifetimes, you could go out and leave your door unlocked and go to town and come back and just go run around outside and go to other people's houses, and nobody thought anything of it. And now the culture is so bogged down in suspicion and fear and anger, and it's not sustainable.
I will say I feel that sense of community a little bit here in Lockhart. I very often just go take a trip on the golf cart to the square for, a drink or something, and I don't lock the doors. And it is kind of a nice feeling, like this is going to be fine. There's no way in hell I'm going to come back and someone's rummaged through my house or something like that.
Yeah, I think that's very important. I think that, we're all going to have to take it upon ourselves to figure out how and when to put these devices down and to recapture those pieces of ourselves that we're losing.
How do we do that?
I know there's who was it? I think it was a couple of years ago. I saw that Dave Rubin. What he would do is he would put his phone in a lockbox for a month and go on vacation.
Yep.
Maybe that's the only way. Maybe we're too addicted to creating content and getting that little buzz off the content that we're making and all that. Maybe we need to say we're not letting anybody down by treating ourselves well and doing something good for ourselves and putting this device away and just living in the moment. I mean, I notice that there are times where I'll get home and Beatrix will be, watching some cooking show and on her phone. And so I'll break out my phone and I'll put my earbud in and I'll find something and I'll turn it on. And then her cooking show will end and I'll still be in the middle of doing whatever. And she starts talking and I'm like, oh crap. And I have to pause it. Like, yeah, what? Huh? I'm sorry. And she's like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm like, no, it's all right. It's fine. I turned something on because I saw you were busy watching, one of your shows. Like, it's all good. And so we have to balance that because we have a TV, but it doesn't work. It's like an old school TV. We don't have it hooked up or anything like that. So it's not like we sit down and watch TV together. Like, that's not what we usually, with her and I, will sit at the kitchen table and have a couple of beers and just shoot the shit and laugh and have a good time. And that's kind of like our interaction and how we engage, in our marriage every night. But that, even sometimes I'll find that we're not doing that as much as we should be because we're distracted with what's going on Facebook or et cetera, whatever's happening. And so I think it's almost a necessity that we have to schedule that time for away from that world, because that is not real life. That is not what we're dealing with on a daily basis. I even find, like, I'll go outside and I'll start working, like doing something in the yard, like mowing the grass or something like that. And I'll mow for like 20-30 minutes and I want to stop and look at my phone and see what's going on. Like, did I miss something? And it's like, I don't even, and I can't, like, some podcasts are loud enough where I can hear them whenever I'm mowing, but some of them I can't hear in the earbud. So I'll turn it off and then I'll start scrolling and seeing, okay, what new podcast just popped up? What new show? What's the news? What's going on? And I'm like, we're losing ourselves and that connection to reality through this device. Like the transhumanist agenda, people are always talking about putting these things in your head and all this crap. No, like, they've already made you part of the device. Like, what was I doing the other day? I was at work and I'm walking through the store and I reached up to my ear as if I had my earbud in, but it wasn't in. It's so natural for me to have that thing in my ear that I will naturally go for it without wearing it. And it's just odd. It's so odd.
I think the rule thing is helpful. I got this from one of my old captains at a station I used to work at, and he said no phones at dinner. And again, like the Danzig thing, some people were like, what an authoritarian jerk. And it's like, that was our family time at the fire station. So we're eating, and then for about 45 minutes to an hour after you're done eating, we all still hang out and talk. And his thing was no phones. And it was so much better, because if you don't do that, then at some point half the people start doing this. And so when I was with Brittany, we had the same rule at dinner: no phones while we're eating, because we're talking and eating and enjoying each other's company. And the same thing with Julie when she was here last. I didn't say, like, if you're with me, you can't be on your phone or something, but I just said, it seems nicer if we could just eat. Like, should we leave our phones over here? And she's like, yeah, that's perfect, because if they're right next to you, it's tempting. Oh, so just a quick text, this is my mom, something like that. And if they're not anywhere around, it's just that I find myself not worrying or not being concerned of what's happening. And part of it's freeing to say, like, I don't care if someone texts me. Like, there's boundaries that it's like, I don't have to answer. And so that's a good feeling as well. And I kind of am like that. I don't like read receipts, because I'm afraid if someone sees that I read their text and then either forgot, or like I'm in a podcast or something like that, or I'm on a call at work and I just happen to look and then I'll forget, and the people are going to be like, what a dick, I saw that he read it yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
kind of crazy. If you try to walk around, like if I was to leave my phone at home and go for a walk around the neighborhood, my wife would be like, what happened? What's wrong with you? What's going on? And I would do the same thing with her. Like, if she left the house and I found her phone here and she was gone, I'd be like, what's wrong? There's something wrong. And it's almost like there's these kind of these etiquettes that have developed around these devices, where there's an expectation that if I send you a text, you're going to respond promptly. It's like the assumption is we all have these on ourselves all the time, and you're going to behave in a certain way with them. And if you don't, you're violating some kind of etiquette. It doesn't really matter why you weren't answering. If you're like, oh yeah, I don't, after 5 PM, I put my phone away and I don't use it at all. People would feel that they'd be like, well, this isn't, like, how am I supposed to get a hold of you?
Yes.
You're not.
Yeah.
But it's like, you can't say that. That's not allowed anymore.
And the only thing worse than that is if you just give me a thumbs up.
Yes.
I'd rather you ignore me.
Right. Or if you do the thumbs up reaction to it, that's even worse. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
I said earlier that I was talking about community and how we're losing that ability to have this community. But there's kind of this irony that all of these devices, all the stuff that we're doing with them, like podcasts and YouTube shows, and like when you're consuming a podcast, that's that's your brain desiring this form of community. You're wanting to listen in on a conversation that other people are having, because then you can connect with those people. You're texting people because you're trying to be in communion with them. You're on Facebook because you're seeing what other people are doing and you're sharing what you're doing. And so it's like the purpose of these things has been ostensibly to foster community, but the reality of using them is that it strips us from our communities. So this is kind of a theme that I'm wanting to explore on my show a little more going forward, is the idea of technology and the role of technology and our relationship to technology. Because it's easy. I think it's very fashionable for people to say, well, technology is evil and bad. And, you take kind of like the Luddite position. And that's clearly not the case. There's all kinds of reasons why I think that's clearly not the case. And even new emergent forms of technology are not bad or evil in and of themselves, but the way they are used, or the way they can be used, can be very, very detrimental. Technology is the thing that man uses to destroy himself, ultimately.
Yes.
But like Gornosky says, the Bible starts in a garden and ends in a city. And a city is a form of technology.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a balance to be struck in here. And it seems like there's a lot of people that are fully on the technophile side. And then there's the people who are the technophobes, but it doesn't seem like there's been a lot of exploration of the middle ground.
You know what struck me about whenever he said that about the Bible starting in the garden and ending in the city? It reminded me of Father Stephen DeYoung talking about how the Christians would would take temples away from pagans and turn it into a Christian temple or a Christian church and reclaim that, right? And that it's like the reclaiming of the city from Cain. It's like turning that spirit of Cain around on itself and taking the reins.
Right. The church is a colonizer. The church is always, colonialism is not a secular phenomenon. The church has always been in the business of colonizing other holy places, other cities. Like that's what, like taking the gospel, the Great Commission is in a sense, it's like a colonial mandate.
Yeah.
That you're to go out and to converting the nations. But converting the nations doesn't mean eliminating the nations. It doesn't mean eliminating the distinctions between them. The distinctions are what provide the identity, that what maintain the isness of the thing, what makes the thing what it is. That's that thought of, I'm going to be thinking about that for a while. That thought of inverting the mark of Cain.
Yeah.
It's what spiritual fathers and priests are supposed to do for us when like if it's this energy we have and we're committing a sin and you confess it, they don't like just cut the energy, rather they redirect it into something positive or virtuous. Mm-hmm. I think it's the same kind of idea that we're getting at here.
Yeah. Yeah, very possible that it would work the same way. And then then that brings us back to the technology and the way that we kind of lose pieces of ourselves and lose ourselves to the constant barrage of pop culture, entertainment, et cetera, all in our face. When Buck was talking about watching those fight videos, I was thinking about the other day, I don't know what I was doing, but I ran into, the YouTube shorts. Mm-hmm. So I ran into one. What was it called? It was called Junk Tramp, right? And so it's these like trapeze artists that jump off this. They have this setup kind of like a half pipe, but at the bottom of it is a trampoline, and they're jumping off of it and they're doing all these tricks on this huge trampoline. I got caught down this rabbit hole, I swear, for about 45 minutes. I was just watching these videos over and over. I was like, this is so amazing. And then I like look and I'm like, what am I doing? Like,
Yeah.
he's like, I got to go feed the chickens. I have to water the plants. Like, why am I sitting here watching this crap, man? And I did. I got this. It was like, I guess got stuck like they always used to talk back in the day. I got stuck in a K-hole.
Mm-hmm.
And
digital K-hole.
Yeah.
I don't think that we are wired to get our immediate opinion out to thousands of people in that moment. I don't think we're supposed to do that. I have to dwell on this thought further because obviously we all have Twitter and we do that, but maybe I do like the feature of the blue check mark where it gives you like 30 seconds and it says it's got a little timer. Do you want to send this tweet? Because I have found myself going, no, I don't. Never mind. I just don't. We're not the best species to be able to navigate that type of technology and do it well without it creating. I mean, we've seen it. It creates chaos and craziness, and it's really, especially young people. There's young girls have committed suicide, high school girls, junior high age girls, because of stuff on social media, because the girls bully people different, than guys do. Guys are more physical in person and girls are more sadistic online and whatnot. And it's like, yeah, not sure we're made for this. And it's almost like we've gone a step too far. We're not going back, you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube, but I do think about these things.
I've said before that the greatest thing about the internet is that anyone can have a voice, or that anyone's voice can be heard. And the worst thing about the internet is that anyone's voice can be heard.
Yes.
There's some people who they don't need their voices to be heard. And there's some times that certain people don't need their voices to be heard. Like each of us goes through periods and stretches where nobody needs to know what I have to say. Nobody, maybe at other times they do need to know. And I can say something that's a blessing to them or that encourages them or that makes them think something different that's positive. But there are also lots of stretches where you don't need to know what I have to say. I don't need to know what you have to say. These are, especially in that type of a venue, it's very foreign to even. I think you could make this case even outside of a Christian context. Like even if you weren't coming and bringing like the Christian perspective to bear, you could just say from a whatever gay theory, evolution or whatever, like that evolutionarily we evolved as, people around like tribes around a campfire. And if you told a story, you're like maybe 20 people are going to hear your story. You're not going to be speaking to the entire city. You're not going to be speaking to the entire valley of networks of cities and getting all of that feedback all at the same time. Or on the flip side, all of those people being disproportionately affected by one person. Neither of those relationships is, I wouldn't say that neither one of them is good or healthy. It's just that they have their time, but we don't have any balance. We don't have any moderating or it's like, if that kind of relationship is going to exist, there has to be some kind of a control valve on it where you can dial it up or dial it down.
When I had posted pictures of my baptism, I saw a few days later how many people saw it or something, or how many impressions. I can't think of the term. I kind of felt weird and violated a little bit. I thought like I didn't want this many people to see that. I just wanted people that follow my show and have followed this bit of a journey. I wanted them to see it. And then like Cernovich retweeted it. And then and these people are retweeting. And I was like, no. I don't want all these people to see that. It just felt weird because I wouldn't have invited, even if they could fit, I wouldn't invite 70,000 people to come watch me get baptized, but yet they saw it. It felt strange to me and I didn't like it.
It's almost like to me it feels like sometimes it feels like we hit like this critical mass and there's no slowing down, and that this kind of global order that the elites have dreamed of for so long is inevitable because of the momentum that technology has behind it. And that the best thing that we can do to protect ourselves from that is to try to retain some sort of local community, like what Buck has in Lockhart, and like here where I live with this little bitty village of people. But it's, I can say, like, here, I don't know as many people as would probably be necessary and as I should, which means that I should probably start making some changes in order to make that a reality in my own life. Right. So that could be a goal in which I focus on and maybe drag my mind out of podcasts and this, that, and the other, and start paying more attention to the environment and the locale around me, and making those connections and creating those relationships here locally.
It's one of my least favorite sayings. It's so Zoomer, but when they say go touch grass, it's such a stupid thing to say, but the spirit behind it is true, to the point you're making. And I like Julie. She does this a lot. When you text people and if you do have read receipts, I call it, she's bad with her phone, but because she won't see it for like an hour. But I actually like that. And it's because she's out like walking her small town. She's sitting outside. She's gardening or something like that. But I think if you can be disciplined with it and set parameters, boundaries are important, but including with your phone. And I think of stuff like, don't look at it for more than 10 minutes if you haven't prayed yet, or don't, if you can set these parameters for yourself, almost like I was saying early on, like ascetic kind of rules to abide by and stay with them, then I think that it's something that could probably be managed quite easily. And I always had this rule: the first thing no matter what app I'm on, the first stupid thing I see, close. Like if it's a person that I know ranting about something on Facebook, using it as their therapeutic center or something, it's like, close, move on. And when you have that rule, it doesn't take very long sometimes.
Yeah. I'm thinking about some of the stuff that I see, and like, I may start incorporating that. That's actually great, because that'd be a very good way to ensure that I cut down pretty significantly on the time that I spend on my phone.
Well, that's probably why I'm not on Twitter very much, because I can't stand all the nonsense I see on there, because I don't go on Twitter maybe twice a day, and not for very long. And usually it's just to make some smart ass comment and move on with my day. And I usually don't even look at the replies I get to that comment, if anybody does reply, though, because I just don't care that much about the interactions on Twitter. I find it to be a goofy way of interacting with people. And I don't even look at my Facebook. I do have Facebook, but I don't look at it. I think the last time I looked at it was like 2 months ago. And that was the first time I'd looked at it in like 4 months or something like that. I just don't mess with Facebook at all.
I've been tagging you in all kinds of great stuff.
Oh, man. Sorry I missed it. You should call me. You got my number? Oh, yeah. Text me. I'll answer you in about an hour. But well, I know you got to go here in a minute, Buck.
I actually have a little bit longer. I still got it. What I have to be got delayed by 10 minutes. So
okay.
About 15 more minutes.
Cool. All right. Yeah. So I'm wondering if maybe, you're talking about touching grass. I'm out there with my chickens almost every day, and
you are doing it.
Yeah. But I still find myself completely like just distracted by this thing, and by everything going on and all the noise I hear and all this. And there's got to be, we're going to have to, or at least me, I'll speak for myself, I'm going to have to find a way to silo my attention and make sure that my attention is only there at specific times. Like, I remember, like, growing up, right? We always knew when primetime television was. We always knew that the show that we wanted to watch came on Wednesdays at 8 p.m. or 7 p.m., Thursdays at 7 p.m. and we knew it. And so we were out doing stuff all the way up until that time. Right. And then we'd come home, we'd eat dinner, we'd go sit in front of the television, we'd watch it. Now it's that entertainment is constant. It's 24/7. It's following you around. You're always able to find something. And I think by trying to figure out like maybe a value system and say, if it's below, like, let's say a value of 6, I'm not giving it any of my time. If it's like a 6 to an 8, it gets 15 minutes, like, and so like really trying to discipline yourself and putting yourself back. Like I said, finding those pieces of you that you've lost by allowing this technology to kind of become part of you and part of your everyday, routines and habits. Because I do find that I get very frustrated and kind of irritable about what the habits I'm seeing myself fall into. And I'm like, this isn't normal. Back in the day, I would do this or I would do that. I was so much more active. I was this, and I'm like, what is going on? Like, what I feel like I'm almost being like, I'm constantly being dumbed down by just the way that everything is set up around us.
We are being dumbed down. I mean, I remember speaking to a psych doctor on the show a few times that I've had on, and he made a point about how young people literally, quite literally communicate with symbols, like we're cavemen on a wall. And he was referring to emojis, but there are younger people that that's all they do is just those, and that means something. You can see it sometimes on people's maybe Twitter or Instagram profile where they will define themselves with just emojis. It's I mean, barring the fact that we have the 3-bar cross, but I mean, like, they can have a whole paragraph with peaches and eggplant, and it is dumbed down to an extent. Imagine those people trying to, like Matt said earlier, write out a long form letter and mail it. It seems impossible.
I think part of this goes
I like when people just say LOL, like in person. That always,
yes, that has translated into an actual discussion.
Sorry, man.
No. Yeah, like the whole point of LOL is that you're communicating the fact that you're laughing. So then, like, yeah. I think part of this has to do with well, like, so like the time that you spend on Twitter or on Facebook or on whatever your Instagram or whatever your drug of choice is, that is time that's not spent. That sounds kind of trite, but it's true. It's time that's not spent learning a new skill.
Yes.
And the act of learning something, especially if you're learning something that's physical, it involves the use of your hands, or it involves hand-eye coordination, dexterity, that type of thing, is very neurogenerative. It generates your brain.
Yes.
So if you're not doing that, then just the act of not doing it means you're losing that neurogenerative effect. But then if you're replacing that with something that's degenerative, now you're burning the candle at both ends. So you're not just not getting the positive effects, you're also adding on the negative effects. You're compounding it.
Yeah. It would be like if you weren't going to the gym, but during that hour where you would be, you're eating pizza on the couch, right, I suppose, or something. And it's like you're not only not getting better, you're getting worse because of what you're doing.
Right. And you're like, maybe you're on the couch and you're all slouched down, so your posture's all super bad and you're cocked off to the side. And so, you're not just not getting the positive stuff, you're also adding in the negative stuff. So you're losing twice over. There's 2 different ideas I have here that are kind of clanging around. One of them is, you were talking about attention, Tommy, and the importance of attention and recapturing your attention and controlling your attention. And there's this thing in physics, like particle physics, called the observer effect, which I'm sure you guys are probably at least somewhat familiar with, where the act of observing a particle changes the behavior or the nature of the particle. So like if it's not being observed, it'll be a wave, but then as soon as it's observed, it's a particle. And so something about observing it, something about directing your attention at something fundamentally changes the nature of reality. Reality is fundamentally changed, like on a physical level, if you can think of it that way, based on where your attention is focused. So if your attention is focused on, I guess just it's just something to keep to keep in mind is the things you're choosing to focus your attention on are quite literally changing reality. It's not you're not a passive participant in these exercises.
Right.
When you choose to focus your attention on something, or you choose not to focus your attention on something, you are changing the nature of reality around you.
Yes, we hear, all three of us now hear it every week. Let us attend is to give your attention to it, and this is how algorithms work as well.
Mm-hmm.
If you give your attention to one, all of a sudden it somehow knows, all right, he's going to like this too. Now he'll like this, and so and then there we are 30 minutes later, dumbed down and wrapped up into watching a trampoline with a trapeze artist, right?
Yeah. I mean, some of the tricks those people did were wild, though. I haven't gonna lie.
One of the other thoughts I had was, this is something I kind of need to flesh out a little more. I've been having some really interesting conversations with my buddy Cooper lately, and we were talking about the masculine spirit versus the feminine spirit, and the spirit of the age today is predominantly is overtly feminine. There's a toxic feminine spirit. It's a disordered feminine spirit. But ultimately, given the typological nature of the feminine spirit and the masculine spirit, the feminine spirit is always reactive to the masculine spirit. So if the feminine spirit is disordered, it's because the masculine spirit is disordered. So men fuck up and women react to the fuck ups. Yep. And you get these guys who are like the pickup artist type of guys who are bemoaning the state of modern day women and talking about how, all the bad things that women do and the bad effects of women and everything. And it's like, dude, this is the biggest self-own ever. Yes. You are proclaiming your own impotence. You're proclaiming your own infertility, spiritual infertility. And one of the things that we were discussing, and I'll probably flesh this out a little more later on, so just kind of get some more of the details, but the masculine spirit is creative, and it embodies, it's the embodiment of life, because you can think of this in very biological terms, that the seed of life is implanted by the masculine into the feminine, and then the feminine nurtures and cultivates it and grows it, but it's implanted there by the masculine. So if your society is dying, if it has no life, it's because that incarnational aspect of masculinity isn't there. It's absent. Correct. And if you get poor men, you're going to get women trying to be men.
Yes.
Because the women are trying to fill in the role of the men. Then if the women are trying to fill the role of the men are going to try to fill the role of the women. And so now you're going to get bad men and bad women.
Yes.
And all of this cycle can't change starting with the women, because the feminine spirit is reactive. No matter what the constraints are, women will always be in a reactive state to men. It has to start with the men. So this right now on Twitter, you're seeing all this spatting back and forth between the like the MAGA camp and the DeSantis camp. And you've got the right-wing commentariat, and you have all these guys talking about the loss of Western civilization and masculinity, all this sort of stuff. And they're basically, what they're doing is they're basically jerking off on Twitter, because they're not producing anything. They're not being creative. They're not being productive. They're sitting here sniping from the peanut gallery. And I've been very guilty of this myself. If you're sitting there just commenting, just observing a problem, because this is how it works in a relationship. The woman says, "Hey, there's this problem," and then, okay, and the man is expected to go fix the problem. The woman's job is to notice the problems. The men's job is to fix the problems. So if your posture is primarily one of observing problems that are going on, but you're not actively fixing them, if you're a man, then you're like an ideological or a spiritual eunuch. You are quite literally projecting infertility into the world. If there's going to be a reincarnation of the world, a revivifying of our culture, it's going to have to start with the men properly embodying the masculine spirit.
But sometimes the women don't want you to fix the problem. They just want you to listen. You got to figure out how to
I've
gauge
heard
that.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the tough one. That's the tough one. The tough one isn't me like engaging in fixing the problem. It's when am I supposed to fix this now? Like,
Yeah.
am I supposed to do something other than just listen to you?
Right.
or I'll get it like 10 minutes later. She goes, well, you haven't answered yet. Oh, I didn't know you were expecting anything. I don't know what you were expecting of me.
You can't win for losing.
Yes.
Now, see, here's what I think happened. And y'all correct me if I'm wrong. The masculine spirit is competitive. And in the late 80s, early 90s, women started saying anything you can do, I can do better. So now men are being better at being women than women are. That's just what I see. It's just competition.
Apparently, yeah. If you're looking at what's going on in sports, right? The guys getting into women's sports, and then they obviously do better than the women. And it's
even Bruce Jenner,
what was feminism for? Yeah. I did an episode with Dr. Marc McDonald called Miserable Women and Cowardly Men. And he broke down the psychological aspects of why we have ended up, and it's exactly what Matt was saying. I think Gornosky has been saying something similar about Mother Earth and the spirit.
On my show, he talked about that.
That's what, okay. I knew that sounded familiar. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've listened to that. I've listened to that episode twice. I'm going to have to go listen to it again.
Yeah, but there's this weird, it's like this reactionary spirit of some of those red pill men or whatever that those guys are. And I saw it even, I just put up something recently that I predict within a year, most men or single men will want to date AI bots, basically. And I saw some men say, I still remember a comment that said, well, because of the way women are these days, can you blame us? And it's like, yeah, I can blame you. You're saying that's you really want an AI girlfriend and put on VR goggles and masturbate to a fake voice? Yeah, I can blame you.
Yeah, I can blame you for
right.
that.
Yeah.
Nothing about that sounds productive at all.
No.
Yeah. In a very literal sense. Yeah. Nothing,
exactly.
Nothing reproductive about it either.
And maybe, it's kind of like the joke I made in the chat earlier about 40% is less than 100%. It's maybe we just got to let these people breed themselves out of existence. Let the pro-abortion people kill all their babies, and let these trans activists mutilate their children and kill the reproductive abilities, because it just seems fruitless to keep fighting with them.
I hate it when it's the kids though that get
I know I do too, but
if the adults could do that, go for it, right?
I hate it too. It's like there's the empathetic and compassionate side of me that really wants to help, but at the same time it's like, what can I do? I raise my kids, I have a grandchild now, and it's like I got to think about them too, and I don't know what else to tell people. It's these people want to mutilate their children. They want their children to not reproduce. Like, they don't want grandchildren. They don't want their offspring to continue their lineage. I mean, it's kind of like this old joke I heard somebody say years ago, but it went something along the lines of 4 billion years of evolution, and you're the best we got, or you're the best that your family could produce. It's kind of, sometimes it's like, I didn't believe in abortion until I met you type of deal.
Don't take this as saying something that I'm not saying, but I think orthodoxy gives kind of an interesting perspective on this, because or at least having been in Orthodox circles and hearing Orthodox people talk about this, I see it differently than I used to. In the Old Testament, when the people of Israel would take over the lands that the Lord told them to, they would slaughter men, women, and children. They would kill all of them. So they were, at the command of the Lord, they were putting the sword to children and babies. And this is like, this sounds like horrible, awful. What kind of God could you worship that does this? But in many cases, if you think about the life that those children would have lived, in a society that is full of pedophilia and child sacrifice and cannibalism and like just outright demon possession, they were being spared a life of misery. And in many cases, if they're young enough, before they become responsible for their own sins.
Mm-hmm.
So bringing them, in this sense, God bringing them to himself is actually preserving them from the life that they would have lived otherwise. Now, like I gave the disclaimer at the beginning,
right.
I'm not saying that the answer to this then is to go and begin slaughtering the children of leftists, obviously. But I think I think what you're saying is a hard thing, Tommy, but I think that there's at least a kernel of truth in there, in that sense that if these people are going to do this to their children, yeah, if you can save them, if you can save individual ones here, not just the idea of them, but if you can actually save, if you have the opportunity to save an individual person, then yeah, try like save them. But just because their parents pervert them and abuse them and mutilate them and ruin them, in our perspective, doesn't mean that they are, even if their parents outright kill them, doesn't mean that they're condemned. They're ultimately, if we had the grand global perspective that God does, that we would recognize his mercy and grace in where they actually wind up.
Yeah, I remember was listening to someone. There's an Orthodox priest. I can't remember which one it was. I was listening to a while back, and they were talking about how people ask, like atheists especially, will ask the question: then if God's so great, then why do children die so young and suffer at such young ages and die? And the priest said that shows God's mercy, because life is suffering, and if not for that early escape from this life, they would still be suffering today. And so it just shows that different perspective of how to look at this. I don't claim to have an easy answer to how to engage with these people that want to do this to children. I just think I just get so exacerbated by the whole situation that it's like, how can you do this? Like, it makes no sense to me. Like, I mean, I just don't understand that mentality, that level of, like, whether it's evil or, a lot of them, I don't even know if they're being malicious. I think some of them actually believe they're doing the right thing.
Right. Oh, I think
which
most
is
of them think
so,
that.
which is absurd to me. It's like, it's so inverted.
Hitler thought he was doing the right thing.
Well,
I mean, most, I think a lot of people that, jokes aside, Stalin thought he was doing the right thing. I think Joe Biden thinks he's doing the right thing. That part I'm pretty convinced of, that they think they're so warped that I think a mom, they would do this to a boy or a girl in some crazy way that's probably beyond our scope of figuring out. They do think they're doing the right thing.
Every man is right in his own eyes.
They would think that us going to an Orthodox church is the wrong thing. Right.
There's another thing that you've got the idea of the Marcionite God, the Old Testament God was evil and the New Testament God is good. That another dynamic of that is the idea of a generational curse. But it's interesting thinking in this context where you can see it really literally, that there is a generational effect to sin. The father's sins will be visited upon his children, and there's in the field of genetics, you can see this. People who have like alcoholism is something that can be passed on genetically. I remember when Amy was pregnant, I was reading or listening to something that was talking about the particular diet and state of stress that the mother is in while she's pregnant. Or even there's some evidence that even the father is in when he impregnates her, and then that he's in while she's pregnant. So it's not even her, it's him with, like, in the presence of her, that this actually has an epigenetic effect on the child. So you can you actually kind of genetically stamp your child based on the choices and decisions that you make at the point that they're conceived. So there's a very real sense in which I see a joke is coming, Buck. There's a very real sense in which this generational curse, you can read this as God's not saying like, if you fuck up, then I'm going to visit a curse upon you because I'm angry that you fucked up. He's saying this is how reality works. If you sin, your sin will have an effect on your children, which will then have an effect on your children's children, which will then have an effect on your children's children's children. And so you get this very quickly degenerative effect that happens when you get unchecked sin that proceeds from generation to generation. But you can also get the flip side, where if it gets cut off at a certain generation and that generation is forgives the sin of his father, then he can actually be healed, and then he'll heal his children and his children's children.
That's interesting. That's a deep way of looking at it. And I had heard that there are elements of the father leaving an imprint on the child just by like kind of his aura or whatever during the pregnancy. But I never looked at it the way that you're explaining it. And that's really deep.
It's a tough thing to live with too.
Yeah, it is. Especially with me. I have 5 kids. I gotta really think about that. Now I gotta like, okay, what was I doing? And
well, maybe you could do that instead of watching a trampoline videos on on YouTube.
A deep dive into Tommy's mind.
Oh God, yeah. I think I'm gonna watch trampoline videos.
Is there a trampoline at the bottom of your mind? If you do the deep dive into your trampoline, are you going to hit the bottom of your mind?
I don't know. I don't know if there's any escape. I don't know. Might just be stuck. So, all right. Well, let's call that one. That a show, man. That was a lot of stuff, and we hit all kinds of different places. Went a lot of different places than I thought we were going to. So, Buck, plug away, my man.
Counterflow podcast is the show. Subscribe on the YouTube page. And when does this drop, Tommy?
Tonight.
Oh, cool. My next episode is with Dave Smith. It was a very good conversation, and it was nice to we go over some post-libertarian stuff, some theology, some spiritual stuff. It was really good.
All right. Plug, Matt.
Kingpilled on YouTube and on Rumble as well. I guess I realized that my Rumble account is mirrored to my YouTube account. So, hey, that works.
I still don't know how to do that.
Yeah, I don't know how I did it. I just realized I did. Right now I'm going through I'm going through a live reading series of Father Seraphim Rose's books. I did Nihilism, The Root of the Revolution of the Modern Age, and now I'm in the middle of Orthodoxy and the Religion of the Future. And next I'm going to do Genesis, Creation, and Early Man. So those are that's coming down the pike. That basically gives me probably videos through the end of the year. Yeah, Genesis, Creation, Early Man is like 700 or 800 pages long.
Yeah,
but
they're going to reprint that one soon.
Ooh,
St. Herman's Press, I believe. David, my godfather, has 2 copies of it. That lucky son of a gun.
Well, all right. We are going to end the recording as soon as I can find my cursor.